So the last sentence of this post, I'll just finish reading this. The eternal truth is that all order followers are and always have been bad people, and will continue to be bad people until they cease to be order followers. Period. Now that doesn't mean that someone who's not an order follower is automatically a good person. You know, someone who willfully exercises conscience on a continual basis is a truly good person, and they can slip up and do something bad. But no one who is actively performing the behaviors of an order follower in that moment is a good person. No one. Zero. Blanket statement. There's another thing people hate. The human ego hates absolutes, ladies and gentlemen. They hate absolutes. When you say 100%, no exception to the rule, always works this way. People in deep ego hate that, because deep down inside they hate truth. And when they hear hardcore, unwavering, indisputable, eternal truth, they hate that most of all, because the ego hates the absolute. It wants everything to be relative. The ego wants to find the tiny little exception, always searching for it endlessly, when there is no exception to an absolute law. Doesn't exist, cannot exist, will never exist. That's the power of the ego, ladies and gentlemen. It gets into the mind, it takes root, and it says, there has to be, this can't be this way. It has to be a different way. Because that would mean that everything I've been led to believe is a lie, and I was wrong, and I can't admit that. The amount of years it took me to get to this understanding, to keep saying I was wrong, over and over and over again. Not just once, multiple times. Hundreds of times. I got an email recently, I can't remember the person's name, but they said, when I listen to your show, Mark, it makes me so angry, because you keep saying things that I think and saying how wrong they are. And he's like, I just want to thank you for continuing to say them. Because it takes me time after time listening to say, really hear what you're saying, not what I want to hear in what you're saying, to really hear what you're actually saying. And make the recognition that I was wrong about how I previously felt about that. And all my thinking was wrapped up in emotional attachment. In emotional attachment to an idea, which wouldn't allow me to see the truth. I just thought it was, to me, something like that is a compliment. Not, it's great. People write and say thanks for teaching, thanks for taking your time to do this. Wonderful. See, something like that makes me realize that it's reaching people who were resistant to change at first. Very resistant to change. That's the people we have to reach, folks. Don't worry about me getting a little bit harsh, a little too harsh, or cutting off a supposed order follower. That's the least of our worries, folks, believe it or not. Get out there and teach natural law to the idiots out there who are making the world a living hell. That's what you need to be doing. You, the listener. And teaching people that is the solution. To stop doing actions that are violent. To stop doing actions that are coercive. To stop following orders. It's about the entire lesson of this world is what we need to stop doing. Not anything new that we need to do. Again, people want to say, I want to hear solutions. First of all, I gave you weeks of solutions, of grassroots solutions that people can get involved in to turn the entire dynamic on this planet around. The whole show is a solution. From the very beginning, it's solution-oriented, because it's about changing the way you think. And when you change the way you think, the external manifestation follows. The problem is people are too attached to erroneous ways of thinking. They want to continue to offer justifications for all this immoral behavior because of some familial connection they have to an order follower. The Nazis did the same thing, folks. They thought, oh, my father's involved in the party. My grandfather's involved. My cousin's involved. My brother's involved. My son's involved. It can't be bad. Yeah. It's how every totalitarian regime begins, with support from family members that don't want to admit that they were wrong and they got duped. We were talking about the lie of the moral order follower in the last few segments. We were talking about the justifications that people offer because they're somehow connected in relationships to order followers, and how their ego has them thinking emotionally regarding these people instead of logically, instead of from a natural law perspective. Natural law does not care what justification somebody offers for immoral behavior. It's a computer program, folks. I don't know how much more clearly I could put it. It's the other thing people don't understand. The universe is based on law. Unwavering law that doesn't care why you did what you did. It only says, did you do this? And it was immoral. It was based on coercion. It was based on violence, and you had no right to do it. Yes or no? Well, if yes, here's the consequences. If no, here's the other consequences. That's it. It's a computer program of pure logic and law. That's why it's not called natural suggestion. The laws of nature are not suggestions. They're unwavering, absolute laws that work 100% of the time, flawlessly at all times and places, everywhere in nature. Everywhere in the three-dimensional space-time continuum that we refer to as the universe. And people don't want to understand that, because they want their mind to be God. They want their justifications to prevail. They want things to work the way they want it to work instead of the way it actually does. They can't get their ego out of the way. Because my father or grandfather was an order follower. And like I said before the break, the Nazis said the same thing, folks. So did every other totalitarian regime. You think those people didn't have mothers and daughters and sons and fathers, etc., that somehow offered justifications for all the things they did? People can't see they're in the same situation. You're in no different situation than that. As a matter of fact, it's a continuation of the same people from the Prussian schooling system that became the Nazis in Germany, that came over here as part of Paperclip and settled on throughout the whole United States. Tens of thousands of Nazis being brought in to avoid war crime tribunals, so they would come to work for this sick criminal government. The OSS, which subsequently became the CIA, brought all these thousands of Nazis over here to work for us. And they settle in major cities in the United States, and we wonder why they're taken over by total draconian Nazi and communist laws. Same thing happened with the communists. Came over and exported their whole outcome-based education system over here. The Frankfurt School and Antonio Gramsci. His plan, the long march through the institutions. We think we've defeated these regimes of Nazism and communism. They shook hands behind our back and said, we're taking America down together. We're going to crush their cultural institutions. We're going to make them immoral. We're going to drive a wedge between the sexes. Break up the family dynamic so we can get the children in the government indoctrination centers. Pollute their minds with collectivist propaganda nonsense. And people are too stupid to see the plan. They're too stupid to see it because it's a chess game that they're playing. And we're not even playing checkers. It's too psychologically sophisticated from a perspective of mind control for most punked idiots out there to figure out. Because they don't read. They have no long view of history. And they're still out there making excuses and justifications for murderers. Which brings me to the images I want to go through for tonight's show. Image number 4 with this podcast / radio show is showing a so-called rally that police and their family members had outside of City Hall in New York City. And they are wearing t-shirts that say, "I can breathe. I can breathe." The disgraceful nerve of these human vermin. Please scratch that. Take the word human out of there. They're just vermin. These are verminous scum whose mothers didn't raise them, whose fathers didn't raise them. Absolute trash. And I'd say it right to their face. And so should anybody that sees any part of this dynamic supporting a murderer. Images 4 and 5 show these Nazis wearing these shirts. Because that's what they are. Nazis. You want to take a look at what a modern Nazi looks like? Images 4 and 5. They're right there. And 6 and 7 show it too. We'll get to that though. Mocking Eric Garner, who was choked to death for selling loose cigarettes. You know, that warrants you getting choked to death in modern USSA, in the United Socialist States of America. You know, it doesn't make a difference whether you're talking about the National Socialist kind or the Nazi variant of socialism, or the International Socialist kind, which is worldwide communism. They ultimately work through the same methodologies. It's ultimately the same system when you strip it down. No different. People who think that it's different are just idiots who don't read books, who don't understand that these systems are basically the same thing. It's all about just total control. They think Nazism or fascism, you know, is so different than communism when it's the exact same thing. It's all based on socialism. You know, it's just the only difference is in how we're going to divvy up these resources for ourselves. You know, that's all. How we're going to take and steal. Are we going to do it through corporations? We're going to do it through government? We're going to do it through political parties? Or we're going to do it through, you know, labor unions? That's all. It's just a disagreement in the methodology a little bit, but ultimately behind the scenes, it all creates the same thing, which is serfdom, slavery. The state owning everything, the people having nothing, abolition of all property, period. All property, including the self, including the body. And people are too stupid to understand that these entities shook hands behind the scene, came in here and said, we're going to take this country from the inside, since we couldn't take it from the outside, militarily. Folks, if you can look at these pictures and not get angry, you are fundamentally broken. And that's all I have to say. And there are people out there, I know there are people out there, I know I'm talking to some of them right now, that cannot experience the emotion of anger. Because this is the over-feminization of both sexes through hormones that's pumped into the food. Some of the same hormones that are given to animals before they go to slaughter. And because of the atrocious diets of people, they are incapable of getting angry. The actual instinctual urge to protect and defend oneself from injustice and violence that's taking place against the individual and the society cannot be felt. It has been selectively, actually chemically bred out of a lot of people out there. It's not true. We're talking about parental abandonment issues as the ultimate nested, subconscious, psychological issue that is driving the condition that humanity finds itself in, and that is slavery. Government is slavery, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you understand that or not doesn't make one bit of difference. It is still true. Until we get rid of this idea called government, get it out of our minds that it is necessary. What anybody is saying when they say government is necessary is they're saying slavery is necessary. And, just if you even just look at that term, you see how ridiculous, or if you should see how ridiculous it sounds. That should be self-evident to you when you say slavery is necessary. But that's what you're really saying when you say government is necessary. That's what anybody is saying when they say government is necessary. And they're enslaved by that very system. So it's a slave on the plantation telling other people, I should remain a slave. Now, how could anyone in that psychological state love themselves? It's not possible. It's not possible. Okay? So you could hate hearing that all you want to hate hearing it. That doesn't make it untrue. It's still true that that's where people are at. Most people are in that state of such deep self-loathing because they want the state to be mommy and daddy. Because they can't deal or haven't dealt with or refuse to deal with their own parental abandonment issues. And they haven't really grown up as a result. They're not a true adult. They are not. They could be as old as anybody else. They could be as old as an 80-year-old person. They could be, in their late 20s, in their mid 40s. It doesn't make a difference what age they are. They could look at adult and they're still a psychological infant. They're still a spiritual infant. Physical age has absolutely nothing to do with how truly grown up a human being is internally. How truly mature they are internally. Okay? So, and this is what the state loves. The state loves people who are psychological children. We're a nation of grown children, of psychological infants. That's what allows the state to stay in control. And they love it, and they do everything they can to propagate it. Talk to us like we're children on the airwaves, feeding us nonsense, mindless forms of entertainment on every channel, on the idiot box that people sit behind with their GMO food, cramming down their gullet every day after they go to their left brain job, and their body's all run down. Then they sit in front of a device feeding themselves crap food and then watch a mind control device all night. And I guarantee you there's plenty of people out there who do the same thing, who are listening to this broadcast and think that they're awake. Think that they know what's going on because they're just starting to understand you're on a farm, that you're in a pen, that you're in a barn. Okay? You're one of the animals on the farm. And most people have absolutely no idea how that is maintained, how that condition is maintained. And they support it in many cases. They support it because they don't want to truly grow up for themselves and take care of themselves. So what I want to talk about here today is my own psychological parental abandonment issues. And those of my sibling. And I'm going to talk about my sibling, my sister here, whether she likes it or not, or wants me to bring these issues up or not. I'm going to talk about it because it's something that I want to discuss. Okay? So, my mother and father separated when I was 5 months in the womb. Okay, now, how's that for an abandonment issue? My father takes off. Obviously, marital infidelity played a role in all of this. And he takes off and splits when my sister is 5.5 years old, and I'm in the womb 5 months. So, this is obviously a typical story of how families break up, divorce, infidelity, leading to divorce, leading to one parent raising two children. This was the case with my family, or before I was born, actually. So, my mother, she's young, she wants to raise her two children, gets a decent job, and then essentially can't be home for the raising of her two children, largely. So now you have the father gone, and you have the mother working constantly every day and only there a small percentage of the time. And again, the state loves this. They love scenarios and conditions like this because, again, they want to be the surrogate parent. They want to be the proxy, the psychological proxy for both parental figures. So they have a vested interest in keeping people in these nested subconscious states of undealt with psychological issues because they want you to be emotionally immature so that you'll eventually identify the state as mommy and daddy. And so many people are right in this trap and don't even know that they're in it. So going back to the story, parents separate at about 5 months pregnancy with me in the womb. So that means I don't ever really know my father upon being born and growing up at a very young age. Eventually I did because he came in my life at a later point. Not in a big way, but, in a way such that I never really harbored a deep ill will or resentment. Started to try to understand young, I feel, how relationship problems can crop up between people, and didn't necessarily have anything to do with me. Now, that was me and my take and my understanding. My sister did not have that understanding. It hit her way, way harder because she was already born and she was already 5 years old when my father splits with my mother. So now, again, my mother's working full-time, trying to raise us and support us, or at least provide for I shouldn't even use the word raise, I should say provide for our physical needs. Much different than raising. If people think that's all there is to raising a child, you have no idea what the word raising even means. Okay? I don't look like I don't look at it from a true perspective of what I understand the word raising to be. I was not raised. I was raised by strangers from a condition of psychological infancy, immaturity, and self-loathing and ignorance. That's what raising really means, is you come out of all those conditions. Strangers did that for me that I never met personally. People I consider my mentors. And you know what? I don't give a damn. Let me just make one thing clear. I don't give a damn what people think of the people I consider my mentors. I could care less what you think about them. Okay? Let me make that clear. I put who I consider people who influenced my life for the positive in a video, and then people say, you want to dismiss my video work? Well, go right ahead and dismiss it. Shut it off. I don't give a damn. Okay? They're the people who helped me. If you don't like them, go listen to somebody else. You're free to do that. You're also free to dismiss my work and say there's nothing to it because he likes these people. I think you're a total retard for thinking that way. It's a complete logical fallacy, okay? To say there's nothing here because this person likes this person's work and agrees with them on a lot of things. It's utter nonsense. It's more emotional immaturity and childishness. That's all it is. You think you can't gain information or garner understanding from listening to somebody just because they like somebody that you happen not to like or agree with? You're a moron. You're a moron. Okay? So you could say anything you want about who I list as people I like and my mentors and who I consider who raised me from a state of ignorance. You go right ahead and say it. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. In the last segment, I was talking about my own family and the parental abandonment issues that myself and my sibling went through growing up because we were essentially raised in by a mother who was divorced. Our father left when my sister was
about 5.5 years old. I was in the womb still, yet to be born, and that creates a whole host of issues. My mother, again, had to take work and not be around for much of the day. So we were essentially living with our grandparents for much of our early childhood. And they would watch us during the day, and eventually I ended up essentially staying at that house almost all the time. So I consider like I was brought up by my grandparents more so than my parents, because again, my father wasn't around physically, my mother not really around much because she had to work to provide for physical needs and monetary needs for myself and my sister. So not to say, as I was saying last segment, that my mother didn't do what she could and my grandparents didn't do an excellent job instilling a lot of good values in both myself and my sister, but I would still not say, as harsh as this may come off sounding, that these were the people who raised me. I was not raised by family members. My physical well-being was cared for by family members. Was I cared for by family members? Absolutely. That's different than being raised by somebody. Most people are not raising their children all over the world. They may care for their children, and provide for physical creature comforts for their children, but they're not really truly raising children. Now, what I mean by raising, again, this is a Masonic term. It means to lift up from a state of spiritual unconsciousness, to actually turn the unconsciousness that is a childlike condition or a actual child condition into an awake and aware adult, mature, responsible condition. It is to spiritually uplift a human being. It is to instill a true sense of morality, of the actual difference between right and wrong behavior into a human being with knowledge. Not with just how you feel it should be done, hoping you do a good job or having good intentions. That's what most parents are doing. They're flying by their shoestrings, okay? I'm talking about with actual knowledge, raising someone from an unconscious condition to a conscious condition. That's what it means to quote-unquote raise somebody. And parents in the United States and all throughout the world, they're not raising their children a damn bit. Not a bit. Who I consider now again, these are people who physically took care of my needs. Different than raising. I was not raised in my childhood. I was not raised until I was about close to 30 years old. I would say I began being raised in my late 20s. And I would consider raised by the time I was maybe 30, 32, 33, something like that. I'm 39 now. Going to be 40 this year, this summer. So, who raised me? Who really raised me? People I've never met. People I've never met in my life. Michael Tessarion's an individual who helped to raise me. Manly P. Hall helped to raise me. William Cooper, Terrence McKenna, Max Heindel. I could go on and on. These are the people who raised me. I may not agree with every single thing they say. As a matter of fact, I don't agree with every single thing they say. That doesn't mean that they weren't instrumental in raising me. Many other authors and lecturers and presenters. How about H.P. Blavatsky and her work? How about people like Israel Regardie, Graham Hancock, Richard Hoagland? You can go on and on and on. Other teachers too that I don't consider every aspect of their work true. Even people you could say in the so-called New Age movement. I got a lot of value out of Deepak Chopra's work. I got a lot of value out of Wayne Dyer's work. Do I consider them New Agey? Yeah, I do. That doesn't mean a lot of the things they don't say are true. Eckhart Tolle's work, some of it is very, very good, although there's many things I don't agree with him with as well. Again, it's about taking what works. And if something isn't working or isn't true and you logically screen it out, then leave it. That doesn't mean you can't take the rest. You know, I love people who, one thing this researcher said I disagree with. Well, all of it, he's an agent. Immediately, they go to that. Immediately. He's working for the dark side. It's all a ploy. He's a shill. Yeah, okay. How old are you? They're making a willful decision to remain in that state of consciousness. You could blame it on mind control and fear all day long, but ultimately it's because they hate the personal responsibility that comes with knowing. That's all it really is about, and let's start calling it as it is, instead of making excuses or trying to justify it. We're going to talk about justification later in the show. So in image number 6 here, image 5, I put an image of what emotional mind control looks like. The monkeys with their hands over their eyes, ears, and mouth. The see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil image, because that's what emotional mind control is about. You know, not wanting to take a look at the ugly truth that we're basically living in a prison here, and it's a prison of our own design, brought on by our own spiritual immaturity and refusal to take personal responsibility for our own actions. Image 6 is this idea that I'm talking about people speaking the truth, but perhaps speaking it in a harsh way or in a way that is loud or abrasive, and people refusing to listen to the actual message. They're not seeing the 2 + 2 = 4. See, what do their eyes and ears go to, right? Is it going to the message that's in that speech bubble, which is true, unwaveringly true for all times and places, from the beginning of creation till the end of time? It's true and has no other solution to it. Okay? Or are they paying attention to what the guy's hair looks like, or what color lipstick the woman's wearing, or how her hair is cut, or that the one woman's speaking through a microphone, or the other guy's wearing a suit? All of this is things that have no bearing on whether the message is true or not. But people under this form of emotional mind control, when it comes to hearing truth, they'll accept the message coming from people who dress nicely and have wonderful posture and will put on that lovely mask. Oh, the plastic face, the plastic surgery face even, that you see in so many newscasters and Hollywood celebrities, etc. You know, and we'll dress in our fancy 3-piece suit and we'll have all the flashy graphics, you know, and we'll talk to you like you're in kindergarten, okay? And we'll treat you like the little baby that we know that you are, and speak in such sweet and pleasant tones. And yet we'll lie right to your face and tell you that 2 + 2 is 5, that black is white, that war is peace, and that freedom is slavery, and vice versa. And nothing can ever make what's in the speech bubble in image number 7 true. Ever. It will never be true, no matter how sweetly it's said, no matter how much people want to accept it, no matter how much people want to believe it's true. And this holds true for anything else, not just mathematics. This holds true for laws of behavioral consequence, for natural law, for issues of right and wrong. And that's why people have such a hard time when you tell them, if you're focused on the people at the top of the pyramid and you're not trying to educate the people at the bottom, you do not understand what is creating the prison you live in. Those people are a paltry, infinitesimal few, and could do nothing to the bulk of humanity on their own. Their influence would be completely negated if the bulk of humanity had and exercised conscience. And that's why people who are under emotional mind control, when it comes to the roles that individuals in a dominator culture are playing, okay, don't want to hear the truth that's written on slide number 8. that it's the people at the base of the pyramid who are creating the problem, not the people at the top. Those people at the top are influencers. They're not actually taking the violent actions. Do you see David Rockefeller taking violent action on other people? This bony old man who's practically infirm, who could be blown over in a strong breeze? Is he the person who's physically injuring and harming other people and physically taking their freedom away from them for non-wrongs, for non-harm? Is he the one who's stepping all over other people's rights by acts of violence? No, he's definitely influencing those actions, but he's not the one taking those actions. These are the people who are taking those actions, and therefore they are the creators of what we have termed the Dark New World Order, and that's unwaveringly, continuously, and forever the case. It is true. That statement is true definitively. It's not an opinion, and it's definitely, absolutely the truth. And if you don't understand that, you don't get it yet. You don't get it yet. Okay? So here's the thing. People go into this shutdown mode when they hear that there is such a thing as the absolute nature of truth, because it doesn't resonate with what they've been told and programmed with through mind control since the day they were born. They've been told truth is shades of gray. It's not absolute. It's not black and white. And this is bunk. This is New Age bunk, and it's also mind control bunk. Because the truth is a particular way. It is as things actually are. It is what is, that which is. It's not open to interpretation. It's not open to shading. It's not open to color of opinion. Grow up, get over it. The object for the successful navigation of this dimension, this realm, this universe, however you want to look at it, is the recognition of those natural laws and the willful decision to live in harmony with them because you are subject to them. The end for all time. That is how an adult has come to understand the nature of the situation that we're in here. All bound together, all one, under immutable laws that we did not create as separate monads of consciousness, as separate individuated consciousnesses. Or you could look at it as individuated drops in an ocean, which are formed of the same thing and are basically indistinguishable from each other in that ocean of consciousness. All with the same rights, but with different individuated, unique properties. Truth is absolute. That's extreme. It's contrary to what we've been told. It works the same way at all times, places, and scenarios. The word absolute we covered. It comes from Latin ab, which is a prefix meaning away from, and solute, which is the solid matter that needs to be dissolved in order to form a solution. The solidity, which is the ego, which is what we're looking to dissolve in people, to come to acceptance of that which is. And that doesn't mean accept things the way they are, even though they're wrong. That's not what we're talking about. Don't get it twisted into some nonsensical New Age bunk of there always has to be evil. No, evil is a choice made in the moment. It's not something that is just foisted upon us, that we have no choice but to accept. And it is eternal and always must be. This is New Age bunk, is what it is. And if you believe that bunk, you're under mind control. And I got news for you. You're not even under mind control by New Agers. You're under mind control by the Satanists and the dark Luciferians that invent that New Age bunk and put it out there so you'll swallow it down like the bunch of crap that it is with a fork and a spoon. To continue evil is a choice made by the rejection of conscience. In the moment, that is what it is. Perpetuated by ignorance and the refusal to accept personal responsibility for one's actions. The solute is the ego that needs to be gone away from. And you get rid of it by dissolving it with truth, which is the solvent. It has to be dissolved in a solvent. It has to be broken down. That's what this process of spiritual alchemy is about. Breaking down the calcification of the ego, the solute, so that a solution can be formed and enacted. The word solvent is probably the most interesting when you break it down using etymology and green language. It comes from the Latin as well. I'm on slide number 10 now. It comes from the Latin solve, which means to release, to unbind, to free, to untie, to open up. Think about it. The solvent is the truth. It is the solution, the understanding of natural law. Saying no to evil, saying no to domination, saying no to ignorance. This is the solution. It is the solvent. These are truths in which the ego must be dissolved and come to accept. If you break down the word solvent, soul vent, the venting of the soul. To vent something is to release it, is to free it. It is the freeing of the soul, the freeing of the light within us, soul, the sun. The one, the uniqueness within the individual, the unique value of every individual, the infinite value of every individual. The soul vent, green language. Most people still can't see that and still think it's some kind of a coincidence, that's not some cosmic. There's not cosmic significance to the way English language worked out. I mean, if you still think that, I feel sorry for you. That your perception is so devoid of wonder and so devoid of that pure, simplistic majesty, that is how language is telling us truth. That I don't know what to tell you. In many ways, I think people that can't grasp that are truly something less than what they not only can be, but were intended to be. And that they are damaged in many ways. They're soul sick. The world is devoid of wonder and magic to them. And I think that that's pathetic. And I feel immensely, horribly sorry for an individual in that state of consciousness. Because the wonder of language and words in communicating ideas and knowledge and telling us the truths that we need to hear and understand just in the words alone is absolutely incredible.